All right. Well, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast, a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Today I have Richard Jacobs on, who's been an entrepreneur for 19 years. He's also a husband and, like me, a father to three young kids, and he's down in Austin, Texas. And I know one of the things that we think about with residency is that how little sleep we're going to get and how much work a resident has to do. And sometimes that comes from the stress of the day, but other times there are ways that can solve it. And Richard has a way that might make it just a lot easier. So, Richard, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it.
Well, the first thing I want to know is your story. A lot of times, a person's greatest success is their biggest difficulty or their biggest pain point. What was it that really caused you to go beyond the normal methods of getting good night's sleep and really just taking it to the next level and not only helping yourself but helping others?
Well, it started in 2017. I was driving home at night on the highway, and I got hit from behind by someone driving like an F-150, and I got pushed off the road, off the highway. And luckily, I didn't go off a cliff or anything. I just eventually came to a stop, and I got a concussion, went to the hospital. They scanned my neck and head and everything. They said, "Oh, you have nodules in your thyroid." I said, "Oh, okay. I don't know what that means." So it turned out, after checking into it, that I had thyroid cancer. So I had to have my thyroid taken out, and things like that. That scares you when you hear that you have cancer. It melts your face off. So now all of a sudden you think, "Oh, you're just going to live forever and everything will be fine." And then you're hit with something that, luckily in my case, out of the cancers you can get, thyroid's like probably one of the easiest ones, which is nice. It's a weird thing to say, but it really woke me up to my health. And I said, I got to do something. I need to do everything in my power to improve my health, because this is like a big warning shot across the bow. I don't want to have heart attacks later and all kinds of other stuff. So I started to focus on health. I started listening to podcasts. I started learning about it. One of the big things that I had trouble with for years was sleep. I go to bed very late. I would wake up multiple times in the night. My wife said I snored. If we want to go on vacation, I was embarrassed. I'd have to get a separate hotel room because my kids would tease me, "Daddy snores." So I started working on my health, my diet, and everything. And one of the big things was, all right, how do I improve my sleep? So I tried melatonin. I tried blackout curtains, a fan in the room, a humidifier, a better bed, better pillows, etc. And one morning I'm laying there talking to my wife, and I said, "Man, this pillow I have, it got soft again. I'm tired of this." She said, "Oh, I'll take your pillow." And I said, "What do you need my pillow for? You've got like 10 of them this past year." She says, "Yeah, exactly, because they don't work." So I said, what they should do is someone should make a custom tailored pillow that's like a prescription eyeglasses, but it's measured to the width of your shoulders and your head and all that. And she says, "Well, you're always looking for stuff to do. Why don't you go do that?" And I said, "Okay, I will." And that's how it started.
Well, let me break that down a little bit. I often don't sleep next to my wife because one of us is going to snore and one of us is going to wake the other one up. And one of my daughters absolutely must have the box fan in her room. And we were just talking about this, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to take a box fan on the plane as we're, going back east for, Thanksgiving? It's like, no, well, we'll buy one there and so forth. So we've kind of done some of those things that you're talking about, but what does it mean to have it just seems like such a simple solution that, well, you just have a pillow that fits. That just seems too easy to me.
Well, preserving your airway is super important. Otherwise, obviously, you die. So
yeah, okay.
what I don't think people know, and I learned, is that your airway is the size of a garden hose. It's 0.6 to 0.8 inches in diameter, which is not a lot. And depending on your sleep position, if your head's not level, if your spine's not aligned, if your neck and all that's not aligned, you can easily kink the hose, which restricts your airflow, and that can lead partially to snoring. And if it closes, that can lead to apnea. So it's super important to keep it open.
So tell me about, there's, I think 14 points I read that you measure. What are those 14 points, or what are the most important of those 14 points?
Well, what's important is that when you lay down, there's a couple of important factors. So when you lay on the pillow, you want it to feel very comfortable right off the bat. And if we've got it dialed in right, people say, "Oh, that feels pretty good." That's important because the more comfortable you are, the faster you'll fall asleep. If you go somewhere, especially a new place, or something goes wrong with your bed at home,
Hotel
and
room. Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, hotel, Airbnb, etc.
Yeah.
If it's not comfortable, you're like, damn it, this is gonna take a while.
Should have brought my
So if you,
pillow.
right, if you're comfortable, especially at home, the more comfortable you are, the more you're like, and you fall asleep quicker. So that's one big thing. Part of comfort is, like, as you're listening, like, tilt your head to the side a little bit, 10, 15 degrees, and imagine there's 10 pounds of weight on your head in that position. That's the weight of your head, by the way. So if your neck is either elevated or if it's too high or too low, that's what's happening. Is your head is in an angled position. There's weight on it because of the weight of your head, and it's going to sit in that position for 6 to 8 hours. So what do you think that's going to do to your spine and your muscles and everything? So that's why a lot of people wake up with neck pain, shoulder pain, lower back pain, etc., because they're not sleeping aligned. Their head is either up or down. The lower part of their body, they may put a pillow between their legs or not. Again, they may look like like an accordion when they sleep, or again, not level. So it sounds like a really simple fix, but just getting someone aligned so their head and neck and all that is aligned, it keeps your airway as open as possible, and it relieves any muscle tension and makes you comfortable and helps you sleep faster. So that's really why this works. I How am I supposed to know? Like, you may have very wide shoulders and a very round head, so you need, a pillow that has these dimensions. And I may have like a very narrow head and very short shoulders or no neck. Everyone's different. So if the pillow is not made to your specs, it's very unlikely that it's going to keep you aligned. That's the reason why these measurements are important.
Okay. And then so does the size of the person matter? Like, is it harder for a bigger person to get some sleep because they put more of a dent in the mattress, or how does the size of a person matter, or does it?
No, it does. This is another aspect. I haven't done it yet, but I've filed a patent on a custom mattress. So I weighed a whole bunch of people laying down. So about 60% of your body weight is in your hip area, your hip and glutes area,
Oh,
30% in your shoulders, and 10% in your head, just for rough numbers. So as you sleep on a mattress, the center will get smushed in the most, then the shoulder area, then the head. So after time, you'll sleep uphill, and you'll fall into the center of the, and you and your partner will
yeah, I'm
fall into the
picturing
center
this.
of the
I'm picturing
mattress,
this.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've created, it's coming soon, but I've created a mattress with varying density according to your body dimensions and everything. So the mattress will wear flat, it'll wear evenly, and it won't cause you to sleep uphill or downhill. That'll make it last a lot longer. And the pillow actually is designed the same way. The pillow is a wedge, and you sleep on the thick part of the wedge because when you lay on it, the weight of your head compresses it to be flat. Normal pillow, it's flat to begin with. You lay on it, the weight of your head sinks in to the pillow. So the pillow comes up around your ears, and you're on an angle. But this, because it's a wedge, when you lay on it, now it's flat profile and it's perfectly set for your head.
There's so much physics to this. Okay.
There's a
All right.
lot.
Yeah.
I
Or
looked at
biomechanics. We could call it biomechanics instead. Sure.
yeah, I
Well,
looked
that's
at dozens of pictures of people laying in a bed, with clothes on. But we had a bunch of people. I said, lay in the bed as if you're sleeping, and I took pictures of them and looked at stuff to see, how does this work? How do people really sleep on their sides and back?
You remind me of the Gatorade guy who went in and said, "All right, well, what are they sweating out? Well, let's make a drink that's going to have that, and we'll put it in." And obviously, Gatorade did pretty okay. So this is great because I don't think anyone really thinks about this stuff in this much depth. So can we go maybe to the problems that people have? So I think you addressed the first one that most people would think their neck, their back, or their shoulders are painful. How would this fix that?
Well, again, it keeps it aligned, so they're not going to get that muscle strain laying in a bad position for hours. Even if you toss and turn a bit, you're 1 hour on this side, 2 hours on that, 3 hours on this side. So this helps eliminate that. You won't necessarily lay in one position the entire night, but you'll
Sure.
lay in an aligned position, most, or if not all of the night. You could even flip over and still be in the right alignment.
And then
So that's how it solves it.
so then with snoring or sleep apnea, that would be something more about the garden hose or keeping that garden hose aligned.
Yeah, here I have to be careful. I can't promise cures, any of that stuff.
Sure,
I'm
I
not.
understand.
But what we've heard from customers is that their apnea improved a bit. They woke up feeling less tired. Um, we had a couple of people that would, they were thinking about talking to their doctor about changing the CPAP pressure. I haven't,
Okay.
but a bunch of people in terms of snoring, they said the snoring got a lot quieter. Some people went away completely, but the person in the bed with them, um, they said the snoring got significantly quieter. And I believe that this is because, again, they were aligned and it kept their neck, it kept their airway maybe even a quarter inch more open or an eighth of an inch more open. And that makes a significant difference. So that's how it helps in those two arenas as well.
And then as opposed to something like a breathe right, which you would buy every time, you just get one pillow or you get one set of pillows. What about
Well, you
tossing
might
and
want
turning?
to you might want to combine it. You know, I,
Okay, okay.
ideally, I mean, it doesn't. The pillow may not be everything you need. We've also made what's called a huggable pillow. So, like if you're sleeping on your side, usually you'll want to roll forward. So we made a custom hug pillow that's to your dimensions, and we made one that you put between your knees and your ankles. So we have actually a whole sleeping system if you want. It's comprised of 3 pillows for side sleepers, and that's like the full treatment. And it sounds, it's overboard, but it's really not. It helps you sleep much better.
No, I'm laughing not because it's overboard, but because I use the pillow between the legs and my wife uses the hug pillow. So it's just funny that we've got, all three
Yep,
of those.
yep.
What about tossing and turning though? I know some people move around, maybe you just addressed it, but some people just I cannot. One of my daughters just will to get set. It's like watching a cat just turn around and around and around until finally gets that perfect position. But what about tossing and turning?
Yeah, tossing and turning is usually because of discomfort. I mean, if you've got stuff on your mind, I can't stop that. There are ways for you to.
Yeah.
Well, there are ways for you to. But if you're, the more relaxed you are, the more you'll fall asleep. Like, if you think about it, no one can say, "All right, go to sleep, self, go to sleep." If you try to do that, you won't. You just all of a sudden you're asleep. You don't know how it happened. So if you're comfortable, that happens much faster. That's the whole goal of the reduced tossing and turning. If you're tossing and turning for a reason, because your body is feeling uncomfortable in some position, pinched, hot, constricted, whatever it is. If I reduce that, then you won't toss and turn as much. Like, one interesting anecdote we've got from some customers is that their head used to get really hot, and now it doesn't with this pillow. And I figured out why. It's because it's pretty firm, and your head doesn't sink into it, so the pillow doesn't bunch up around your head. And if it doesn't do that, there's more airflow around your head, so it tends to keep your head a bit cooler too. A few people said they were sweating, and now they stopped, and I figured out why, which is really cool.
What about headaches and migraines? I know you can't make any medical promises, but I know a number of people, if they don't sleep right, it's immediately to the ibuprofen, maybe something more, or maybe they have to have caffeine that day because they just woke up with this headache. And I don't know if we've necessarily, I feel like that kind of pain is a very different pain than when your neck or your back or your shoulders hurt. Have any of the people that have used it uh, been better off with their headaches or things like that?
Yeah, what I've noticed is there's two types of effects. There's immediate ones that'll happen the first few nights. They'll say they're more comfortable, they're feeling better, their neck doesn't hurt, and then after a few weeks, that's when I've heard from people like they don't have migraines anymore or they don't have headaches as much. So I think headaches and migraines are more of a function of if you don't sleep well most nights of the week, that it leads to just all kinds of other physical problems, obesity, diabetes, dementia, all that. There's been studies on it. So the secondary effects are if you sleep better, you know, 5 nights a week out of the 7. Let's say you were sleeping well 2 nights a week, and I can get you up to 5, not 7, but let's say 5. Over time, that benefit will compound, and it'll help to alleviate a lot of other health problems that you may be having. That's what I've noticed. Again, I can't point to like specifics, but I've heard from people certain comments when they first use it, and then other comments after like a few weeks or a month.
Well, tell me a little bit about the stories maybe you have in terms of how long somebody has suffered. I know as a guy, there's a drug for the flu that needs to be taken within the first 48 hours that you get the flu. And I'm like, well, I would never have gone to the doctor in the first 2 days. I'd have to suffer for a week or so before I'll actually go. But I feel like some of the people that have come to you may have had this happen for quite a while. How long have people suffered, or do they usually tend to come to you right away?
No, it's usually months or years. They hear it all the time. Oh, I haven't slept well in years. I haven't, I've had pains or problems for 5 years, 10 years. It's usually a very long time.
It's got to be pretty satisfying. Do you have any like really just stories that stand out to you? I know that you have some on your website, but maybe one or two stories that are just like, man, that I'm really glad that I not only fixed this for myself, but for someone else.
Yeah, I had it was kind of strange. I had two people that had arthritis, not even in their neck, but it was like their hands and other places. And they said after a month, their arthritis got better. Again, the only thing I can contribute it to is the overall effect of sleeping better. Um, I had one chiropractor. He was really funny. I go to see him. He goes, "Rich, that pillow's awesome." And he puts his hand on my shoulder, and I said, "Oh, good. What happened?" He said his neck was hurting. Now it's not hurting. And I said, "You're a chiropractor. What's wrong with you?" He goes, "Well, it would help me." But he goes, "I got to tell you something." I said, "What?" He goes, "I've been married for 28 years. And you know what my wife told me?" I said, "What?" He goes, "I'm not snoring anymore." And he smiles at me. So I knew, okay, he's back in the bedroom, and
Oh,
his life is happier. So that was a pretty funny one.
that's cool. Yeah, no, I'm in one of the kids' rooms and my wife's in the other room if things get loud in terms of snoring and things like that. So I absolutely know what he's talking about. Well, let me just ask you one last question, then we'll figure out how people could get a hold of you or get a hold of the pillow. Um, what do you hear in terms of a perfect night's sleep? Like that means different things to different people. For me, it would be not waking up tired or not wanting to go right back to bed. But what do most people say? This would be a measure of success, because I don't know that anyone would really track. Okay, I was having 2 nights where I slept. Now I have 3 nights where I slept well, or something like that. What do you hear in terms of markers? Like, how would someone know that it worked?
Because the problem that they first came to me with, you know, gets less or even goes away. The nice thing is everyone has a memory of when they slept really well, even if it's 20 years ago. I tell them, but
Before
seriously, think
kids.
think about a
Before
time when
kids.
you slept great, you woke up, you felt awesome, and
Yeah,
you were off to the races. And so that's the goal: is can we get you close to that? A couple times a week. I mean, there's a lot of people that they say every night they don't sleep well, every single night. So if I can get them to like sleep pretty well, a few nights a week, it's a big win.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything you wanted to say that I haven't touched on? And then we'll get your contact information.
Yeah, one thing that's important I realized is the better my health is, the better I treat my family and people at work, and so it's super important. If you don't feel well, let's say you're a pharmacist, you actually may, God forbid, make a medication mistake and hurt someone or kill them, or you'll be just mean to the people in the pharmacy, for instance, or your coworkers, or your wife, or your husband, or your kids, or if you feel better because let's say you slept better or you're just taking care of your health, you'll treat everyone else better and you'll have better relationships and a happier day. And I don't think people realize that. So that's probably like the number one benefit I would say beyond just your own health is your relationships will improve if you feel better.
No, that sounds great. Well, how would people reach you?
Yeah, best way is the website is called goodnightssleepproject.com. So it's plural, goodnightssleepproject.com. That's the best way.
Okay. And I can put that in the show notes as well. All right.
Sure.
Well, Richard Jacobs, thanks so much for being on the Pharmacy Residency podcast.
Thanks, Tony. No problem.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Pharmacy Residency podcast. And if you're interested in learning more about the interview process, go over to Amazon.com where you can check out 100 Strong Residency interview questions, answers, and rationales in print book, ebook, and audiobook.